The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/247 and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, permitted parishes only, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York, or visit oasas.ny.gov/gambling. Standard text messaging rates apply. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Utah, and other states where prohibited.
I'm Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com.
And I'm Scott Chasen.
This is a replay of WIBW show, The Drive.
Here's this week's episode on the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network.
Good evening, Wildcat and Jayhawk fans, and welcome to The Drive, sponsored by Briggs Auto Group. I am Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com, and the man across the studio from me is Scott Chasen. Scott, both teams won. We got victories to talk about. That's nice. That's nice. I'm going to write down victories.
Fitz, we're used to Kansas not really having a team in football, kind of having a team in basketball. K-State kind of has a team in football and kind of has a team in basketball, at least the way it's looking right now.
They are looking better indeed. You can interact with us on social media at facebook.com/The Drive Show, on Twitter at The Drive 13, and of course answer our weekly poll question and make your game predictions on our Twitter page. And remember, if you ever miss an episode of The Drive, you can listen to an audio-only version that will appear each Monday morning in the form of a podcast at GoPowerCat.com. We start off with our 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill is sponsored by Vanderbilt's Your Work Boot Center. It's basketball season, so we flip it to KU. Scott, Kansas survived an upset scare against Stephen F. Austin on Saturday. What did you make of the way Kansas played down the stretch?
Well, Fitz, I don't think this would have been an upset scare if Kansas had just finished some dunks. I mean, 3 dunks missed, and, they were at a time where Kansas was trying to pull away, and the game kept, kind of inching closer. So instead of being at that 10, 12-point mark that's comfortable, most of this game was at the 5, 6-point mark, and then even closer than that. Look, Stephen F. Austin, which was without one very good player, was clearly energized for this game, and Kansas had to kind of turn things up, especially late. I thought the play of Remy Martin, who you just saw complete the and one there, I thought it was important, especially down the stretch. Look, Kansas has a couple of, I think you'd call them marquee scorers at this point with what they've done. You expect it to last. Certainly Ochai Agbaji doesn't seem like he's going anywhere, and Christian Brown turned in another great performance. I think through, 9 or 10 games, whatever it's been, this is probably just what you expect from Christian Brown now. This is the guy he is. But make no mistake, Remy Martin, at the end of games, at the end of clock, he is as important a player as Kansas has on the roster. You saw that big dagger three. That really was kind of maybe not the turning point of the game because Kansas probably was going to win regardless, but that was the shot that ended the game. And then you see Remy Martin pumping up the crowd right at the end after he saved a ball, called a timeout. There were just a few seconds left, and Kansas again was going to win anyway, but he brings that energy. After the game, I found it interesting. Bill Self was kind of he praised Remy Martin for some of his winning plays, and then was also kind of critical of him for areas where he let up, especially defensively. And we've kind of seen that tug of war between player and coach back and forth. What is a good shot for Remy Martin? Is he taking the right ones? At times, is he taking enough shots? Is he trying to make it a point that he doesn't have to shoot a bunch, and it's actually hurting the team that he isn't shooting? You've seen it defensively. I think him and Bill Self still figuring it out. This team is good. Ochai Agbaji is an All-American candidate. Christian Brown looks fantastic. But if it doesn't have good point guard play, it won't be elevated enough to really do something special in March. I think you're seeing something happen with Remy Martin. I think this game was an example.
I hate it when I miss my dunks. I just hate it, man.
How many dunks would you estimate the two of us have missed lifetime, Fitz?
All of the ones we tried, except for one. I actually dunked the ball once, but it was on. Yeah, I cheated. Never mind.
Okay.
It's hard to explain.
Walked up the ladder first. Yeah. Well, K-State headed to Nebraska on Sunday for the revival of a Big 13 basketball rivalry.
That's a nice typo in there.
That's what it says on the teleprompter. I wanted to double check that one with you. It's K-State pulled out the win, 67-58. What are your takeaways from this game?
I love it when I put typos into the prompter. Hey, K-State won 67-58. They didn't look great, particularly in the start of the game. They fell behind. I think it was 25-15, and then had a big run to close the first half and take a halftime lead. Then they started slow again in the second half. So there are certainly some flaws here, but going on the road and winning 67-58 is nice. Nebraska's not very good. We're well aware of that as they continue to struggle under Fred Hoiberg, but they have been a little bit better this year. They've been playing somewhat better at times, and K-State really made the plays that they needed to. Nigel Pack was back at full strength and finished this game with 15 points and 8 rebounds, as the sophomore point guard is just so valuable for this team, but it's good to have him back fully from that concussion. And, they just didn't really play very well. I think they hit like 6 of 26 three-pointers. They took way too many three-pointers in this game, but they did make some shots when they really had to have it. And K-State found a way to win as they inch closer to Big 12 play, and they're now 7-3 overall in the season. This team is better. This team is exactly what I thought they would be. Maybe a hair better, actually, than what I thought they'd be, but I don't know if they're good enough to win a significant amount of games in the Big 12. Honestly, Nebraska would probably finish dead last in the Big 12 this season, particularly if K-State rolled up there and just handled them fairly easily down the stretch. So I'm really encouraged by what I'm seeing from Kansas State, as Bruce Weber really did a wonderful job of bringing in 3 transfers that seemed to really help the team, and they seem to be really well bonded together. So this is going to be entertaining. They will open Big 12 play on January 1st at Oklahoma. We'll pick that game and a little bit later in the show. And Scott, I'm encouraged, but I've learned to be cautious with these good bursts from Bruce Weber's program. We'll see if they can hold up in the conference.
Well, I think that's fair. I think the cautiousness is fair. Don't you think it's a good sign that sometimes when you have transfers, it can take time to hit the ground running? And maybe it still is taking a little bit of time with them, but they're still getting some marquee wins along the way.
Yep, they sure are. Yep.
Well, Fitz, signing day took place just a few days ago. Why don't we each spend a minute breaking down what the Wildcats and the Jayhawks did, and you can go first on this one.
Well, I tell you what, early signing day just isn't the same right now. I mean, because these programs are all trying to have to wrestle with the number of scholarships they actually have available. What super seniors are coming back, they don't know maybe quite yet. So you have to leave them scholarships, because starting this year, next year, they will count in your scholarships. They didn't last year. And how many get out of the transfer portal do you want to take? Those will count in your overall scholarships. There is some forgiveness there from the NCAA to replace players you lost in the transfer portal. So they don't count necessarily in this class, but they do towards the overall 85. K-State signed 13 guys, picked up a blue shirt in there. One of them's junior college player. It's a nice class, but really, and you're aware of this too, Scott, because this is what KU's doing. The real damage or the goodness will be coming through the transfer portal. And while those guys kind of count, it is interesting to see these programs try to strike that balance between recruiting traditionally out of the high schools, and just going to find guys in the portal that can help you right away.
Yeah, well, for Kansas, it's very much the same. And in fact, I remember one of Lance Leipold's first press conferences, he talked about not liking the term re-recruiting your own players, but it's kind of the reality for just about every program in the country. Look, Kansas is going to take a smaller high school class. Kansas has Les Miles and Jeff Long to thank for that. For 2 years, they recruited only high school players. They fixed the scholarship numbers. And now Kansas gets to be selective and choose the year, the type of player they bring into the program. I think it's going to be very transfer heavy. Now, right now as things sit, Kansas has the number 5 transfer class in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. That includes a linebacker from Ohio State, a defensive back from Michigan State, a running back from Nebraska. And a lot of these guys actually played, had good Pro Football Focus grades, had the chance to make an impact, maybe some with bigger roles than others. I think this continues to be the route for Kansas, and I guess we'll see, because I think a lot of programs are going this way. This is not a Kansas and K-State specific. This is a new age college football specific. I think walk-on classes, too, this year, they're going to be so important, because you're going to have 2, 3, 4, 5 walk-ons who would have been scholarship guys in previous years. It's unfortunate that those kids don't get scholarships, but it could help programs out a lot.
Yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit later in the show, but this is really a scholarship crunch that's impacting high school kids the most, and it's really kind of unfair. Now, a quick look at your poll question results. The poll questions are brought to you by Midland Exteriors. Love the home you live in. Call today for a free estimate.
Well, last week's question was, should KU basketball in Missouri play at least once every year? And most of our viewers seem to think so. 62% say A, yes, they should. 38% B, no, they should not.
38% said, we don't like nice things. This week's question is, will the Kansas City Chiefs get the #1 seed in the AFC? Your answers are A, yes, B, no. I wanted to change B to heck yes, but I was told we had to offer a wider selection. Vote on our Twitter page at @TheDrive13.
Well, Fitz, I think it's certainly looking good for the Chiefs, especially with some of the results this weekend. So that will do it for this half of the 2-minute drill, but we will be right back with more on KU and K-State on The Drive.
Picture this nightmare scenario. You're hosting friends for the big game. It's neck and neck in the fourth quarter, and suddenly you realize you're out of drinks. You start to sweat. Your friends start to turn on you. You're forced to go on a last-second drink run and end up missing the game-winning touchdown while in line. Terrifying, isn't it? Luckily, you can avoid the drama with Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. With Drizzly, you can shop a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them delivered right to your watch party. Compare prices across multiple stores in your area, find the best deals on game day drinks, and get back to armchair quarterbacking from, you guessed it, your armchair. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
Welcome back to The Drive as we continue our weekly 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill sponsored by Vanderbilt's Your Work Boots Center. Well, Scott, you've spoken about Bill Self tightening up the rotation. Do you see any players, new players, cracking the rotation as Big 12 play nears?
Well, Fitz, it's interesting. You know, last week we talked about maybe only 7 guys being the players Bill Self trusts. What happened in this last game? Second half, only 7 players actually see the floor. So I do think Bill Self has tightened this thing up a lot. It's a little surprising with how deep this team is, but Bill Self wants to win games, so he's going to play the guys he trusts the most. Now, 2 players I think have a chance to break into that group, and the 7 players I'm talking about, Kansas's 5 starters, and then you have Jalen Wilson and Mitch Lightfoot off the bench. I think one guard has to kind of join the fray, and I don't know at this point, you know, Bobby Pettiford is out with an injury. We'll see what it's like when he comes back, if he's able to kind of get himself back into the swing of things. I think KU would like that because I think they think he's an impact player. But if it takes too long, you get to a point where you start looking at red shirts. And, you know, I don't anticipate him really being a 4-year college guy, but maybe if it's best for him and he's, you know, too late in the year to make an impact, it'd be something you look at. Another guard option would be Joseph Yesufu. I think at times he's been a little, you know, maybe hesitant or struggled some offensively, which surprisingly, that was what he was so good at coming into the year. Defensively, I think he's done what Bill Self wants, but Bill Self even kind of in a self-deprecating comment said, I've got him so screwed up trying to defend that he's forgotten how to score. So I think Bill Self wants to work with Joe Yesufu to kind of expand that offensive game. I think one of the two of them has a chance to really crack the rotation, and if not, Jalen Coleman-Lands, just as a sharpshooter, there's a role for him as this team's best three-point shooter. There are other talented guys on the team. I like Zach Clements. I like KJ Adams. I like those young big men. It's hard for those guys to develop trust in a way that they're going to play a much bigger role than a guy like David McCormick or Mitch Lightfoot. So I'm going to put those guys aside for now. I think Kansas can have some help and some reinforcement in the backcourt. But again, we've seen traditionally Bill Self over the years, he doesn't really stretch that rotation as the season grows. He usually works on whittling that down, especially as you get into Big 12 play. I think the 7 you're seeing, that's pretty close to what it's going to be, maybe with an 8th or a 9th guy sprinkled in. But I think the rotation you're seeing is going to be the rotation for a good bit.
It strikes me that Kansas probably has guys on their bench outside of their regular rotation that could start at other Big 12 schools.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's true in many years, but it hasn't always been true recently. This year, it's definitely the case. Well, Fitz, K-State is preparing for the Texas Bowl on January 4, and Fitz, you will be heading to Houston for the game. So how important are your travel plans? No, I read that wrong. How important is it for the Wildcats to get that win at LSU?
It really is important. They're at 7-5, LSU 6-6. I mean, there's just a world of difference psychologically between 8-5 and 7-6, and getting that 8th win and finishing on a strong note would be really good. And honestly, getting Chris Kleiman's first bowl win after so much success in the FCS level playoffs would be really nice for him. This is a really intriguing game because LSU's kind of depleted. They had their top 2 quarterbacks out. Now their second quarterback has decided to return, and I imagine will start for them in the bowl game. But there'll be depleted rosters kind of a little bit for both teams, particularly LSU. And what's funny about this, Scott, is I did a radio show out of Baton Rouge a week or so ago, and they mentioned that they had a bunch of guys that were going to sit out the game to prepare for the NFL draft. And the guy said that probably is happening for K-State too. And I'm like, well, no, it's actually not. That doesn't happen. So it's an intriguing game for me. But the important thing here is for Kansas State to come out and look good, and particularly on offense, where Colin Klein will be the interim offensive coordinator who might end up being the full-time offensive coordinator. So I think there's something at play here. And boy, Chris Kleiman ruffled some feathers with some fans that got really worked up that Kleiman said worrying about the next offensive coordinator, getting that hire done, was at the bottom of his list. He's in the middle of recruiting. He's trying to figure out the transfer portal and trying to prepare his team for a bowl game. There's no reason to rush this hire of an offensive coordinator right now. And he knows he has time, and he has a very capable staff of younger coaches and analysts who have been elevated to, recruit and work on as assistant coaches for the bowl game. I think this is a big window for Kansas State, not just after the game, but get the win and then get the 2 openings on the staff shored up. And I just feel really good about where K-State football could be if they win. It's not that I feel bad if they lose, but I think that it'll really project them well into the next season.
Well, Fitz, I want to jump back to something you said, or something that was brought up with players sitting out going into bowl games, because this is always something, it's bothered me a little, not because of the players. I think they have to do what's best for themselves. But, just as a fan of college football, I've wanted to see those guys get a chance to play. What about using NIL to combat that and having some way to compensate players that would maybe be off to the NFL, getting them a 1-game payday for some kind of sponsorship with a bowl, and then you could actually see the best play the best? Thinking specifically about Breece Hall sitting out against Clemson, I would have loved to see that matchup. I'm
really bummed Breece Hall's sitting out, but I get it. He's a potential first round or at least early first day pick. But boy, you get that bowl kind of based on him, and then he sits out, and it kind of stinks for the fans. And now we step out of bounds, and Out of Bounds is brought to you by Copeland Insurance Agency, part of your community for more than 60 years.
Well, Fitz, Christmas is coming up, so let's give a present to the KU and KSU basketball teams. Would you like to go first? What would a good present for K-State hoops be this year?
I feel like I'm Bill Snyder in saying this, but consistency. And again, that popped up in Sunday's win at Nebraska. They were bad at the start of both halves, particularly at the start of the game. And they just need to find a way to really kind of put together consistent efforts from the start to the end of both halves, and they make it too difficult on themselves with starting without energy. And you could hear Bruce Weber yelling at his team to have energy in the second half. So just be a little more consistent and focused when you step on the court, and hopefully that will come for the Cats, because they certainly are scoring and playing defense at a higher level than they have the last couple seasons.
Well, Fitz, I kid you not, the word I wrote down on my sheet of paper was consistency, so I will pivot and go a different direction. Look, Kansas needs a visit from the ghost of Marcus Garrett pass. I haven't seen my Christmas movies in a while, so hopefully I got that one right.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's Bill Self's personal favorite. Mm-hmm. And look, for all that Marcus Garrett was great at, especially on the defensive end, it always struck me that Bill Self raved about the Marcus Garrett's ability to know what Bill Self was thinking, even if it was just something about the attitude of the team, and just kind of have that idea in his head that he would bring out and he would say it before Bill Self even could. There are a few guys on this team who I wouldn't say are feuding with Bill Self by any means. I think, the relationship is generally positive, but maybe just aren't on the same page in terms of understanding what he wants and when he wants it. And for that, I'd look at maybe Jalen Wilson, David McCormick, and of course, Remy Martin. I think the best Christmas present that KU basketball could get would be those guys simply getting on the same page with the head basketball coach. So ghost of Marcus Garrett passed, a visit from Marcus Garrett. I think that's the gift I'm going with.
Hey, look, it's old as time. Players think they know better than the coach. I got news for you guys. You don't know better than Bill Self. You just don't. Now let's hear from the fans. And our fan question is sponsored by Meadowlark, supporting people in living their best lives. Our fan question this week is, should the Jayhawks consider changing their starting lineup? Jack in Lenexa wants to know, and they want to know if Fitz should be in that starting lineup.
Well, I think other than Fitz, the change would probably be that people have looked at maybe, some are unhappy with David McCormick and want Mitch Lightfoot in there, or one of the freshmen, or maybe DeJuan Harris, who isn't scoring a bunch. I actually think Kansas might have the right combination now. Jalen Wilson hasn't really gotten going yet. I don't know necessarily that starting him magically fixes all the issues or the fit that maybe he's struggling with right now. What I think we're seeing is that Kansas has traditionally played better with two guards on the floor rather than one guard and a bunch of wings. I think Bill Self likes the idea of having DeJuan Harris with Remy Martin. You throw Bobby Pettiford into the mix when he's back. I think that'll help. So I wouldn't change the starting lineup right now, but if I were to make that change, I think Jalen Wilson might be the one I'd look at. Just maybe it makes him more comfortable, but it's mostly guesswork at this point.
Yep.
Well, remember to ask us your questions on our Facebook page and on Twitter at The Drive 13. When we return, we will look at our predictions here on The Drive.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify is here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
Welcome back as we head down the home stretch of this week's show. Now it's time to look at our predictions. And remember to make your weekly predictions on our Twitter page at The Drive 13. Here are last week's results. The viewers went 1-2. I went 3-0 because I am incredible. Scott went 0-3 And that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I had a chance to get over 500 there, Fitz. Very bummed with my 0-3 week, but congratulations on your great week.
I'm back. Hey, and a little programming note, we will not have a show next week because of the holiday, so we're picking some games here, at least basketball, that look down the road a little bit further. And we start with Kansas minus 13.5. Did we do 13?
I think it's 14.5.
14.5 versus TCU. What you say?
Fitz, I'll actually take TCU. It's a lot of points. TCU has played well so far this year, but Kansas is very good too. Who do you have?
See, the key here is to find a point spread that tempts one of us to go with the other team. I'll take KU because I got you to go up.
Well, Fitz, next is K-State plus 8.5 at Oklahoma. I am going with the Oklahoma Sooners. Do you have K-State?
Yeah, I think I'll be surprised if K-State wins this, but I think they'll be competitive, so I'll go with the Cats to not lose by more than 8.5. That makes sense? And our last game of the week is the NFL, Pittsburgh plus 9.5 at Kansas City. I'm taking the Chiefs. Give me whatever the points are, I'm going to take the Chiefs.
I think we're both going Chiefs. We're hoping for a happy week next week, Fitz.
Absolutely. Again, make your picks on our Twitter page at The Drive 13. Now it's time for our On the Clock segment. On the Clock is sponsored by Carpet One. Buy local for a strong local community. And we got some time, so let's start with Scott Chasen.
Well, Fitz, I'm going to talk about the Chiefs mostly because they won't let me talk about Spider-Man. Awesome movie. Already seen it twice. Go see it for sure. No, look, the Chiefs got an absolutely huge win. I was actually in the theater for Spider-Man. I bring it up for a reason. People were checking their phones for Chiefs scores, Chief highlights. It's just funny to think about where this team has come and really where the fans' support of the Chiefs have come. Obviously, fans always support the Chiefs. Kansas City is a great sports town, but people were really worried about this team, probably myself included, absolutely. Earlier in this year when the offense was a struggle, the defense was a struggle, Patrick Mahomes looked broken. Lo and behold, everything has kind of sorted itself out, and much like Spider-Man, no spoilers, Chiefs have kind of figured things out. So Chiefs absolutely rolling. I do expect them to get the number 1 seed, and this could be another Super Bowl year for Kansas City.
Well said, Peter Parker. Hey, I'm a little bit concerned about the impact of all of these things going on in recruiting right now and the lack of opportunity that these high school seniors for the next few years are going to see. The number of scholarships available to them will be down drastically from what it's been because people have to hold on to scholarships for the transfer portal and for their seniors that will be returning for the bonus season that they got because of the pandemic. It's really unfortunate that it's the high school players that are going to take it on the chin. But the good news for K-State and a KU is that means there will probably be a higher level of talent available in the later signing period for them to grab, and that's good news. That's it for this week's edition of The Drive. We'll see you next week right here and all week on social media.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.